1. Introduction. This paper describes the demand and supply matching system between the business community and the residence clubs in the ASTRAX Lunar City project. 2. The concept of supply and demand for ASTRAX Lunar City. 2.1. About ASTRAX Lunar City business community. ASTRAX Lunar City is creating a lunar business community using the lunar land sold by Lunar Embassy, Inc. in the United States. About 350 companies, stores, and businesses have already become members, started creating businesses, products, and services using the moon. 2.2. About ASTRAX Lunar City Residence Club. ASTRAX Lunar City was initially business community members who purchased land on the moon under the joint name of ASTRAX. However, as the number of makers and sellers increased, we were faced with the problem that there was no market, a place to match supply and demand, to offer these products and services. Of course, it is possible to offer products to the general market. However, it is not enough to just offer them. Another problem was that our activities were not yet known to the general public. So, we thought it would be easier to sell products and services related to the moon to a community of people who are interested in the moon from the beginning. ASTRAX decided to create the ASTRAX Lunar City Residence Club, a community of lunar residents, to bring together existing lunar landowners and those who do not need to purchase new lunar land to do business. Both new buyers and existing owners will have a unique lunar address. By using that address as an ID number and having them register as members, they will be able to enjoy various products and services of ASTRAX and the ASTRAX Lunar City business community. 2.3. Common benefits for business community and residence club members. Each member of the ASTRAX Lunar City business community and residence club is entitled to the privileges listed below. 2.4. Supply and demand related to the moon. First, when talking about businesses related to the moon's supply and demand, people tend to think in terms of engineering. However, ASTRAX's idea of supply and demand is not infrastructure. It is a more general market. The people who own the land of the moon are not developers or researchers. They want a simple earring in the shape of the moon. If possible, they would like the earrings to be made of actual moon rocks. If they are going to live on the moon, they want a McDonald's. They want a Starbucks. They want a pool in their yard. They want to drink beer and wine while gazing at Earth. These are the needs of the average person on the moon. Or, because the moon's environment is less gravitational than Earth's, life on the moon would be more suitable for people who are losing their strength or are bedridden. There are still no companies that can actually provide those products and services. If becomes possible, it will be done by the members of the ASTRAX Lunar City business community. Therefore, we wanted to create a system to match supply and demand at the same time by connecting the needs of the general public with the companies that want to, or may be able to, provide them. 2.5. Examples of various businesses, services, on the moon. If a city could be built on the moon and people could live there, everything that we have on Earth would be needed. Since it is expected to happen in a few years to a decade or so, it is unknown whether we will need what we currently have on Earth or not, but even if we think about what we currently have, there are many possibilities. In this example, the category levels are different, so it is not possible to make a general comparison, but we believe that in the future, products and services will be subdivided as needed and more detailed products and services will be added. 2.6. Connecting disparate supply and demand. As mentioned above, there are a variety of services and privileges available to our friends at ASTRAX Lunar City. So far, we have focused on attracting members by using those privileges as advantages. However, the problem was that even if the number of members increased, the supply and demand were still uneven and did not match. In other words, there are people who say, I want to do this kind of business on the moon, but there are no people who want it. Or some people wanted some kinds of products and services, but no place offered them. No matter how many frameworks are created, to actually move the economy forward, there has to be a mechanism to match supply and demand perfectly, and ASTRAX Lunar City did not yet have the special tools to do that. We are in a trial and error process to find a mechanism to connect them. We are currently working on a system to connect them through a public meeting, a clubhouse program, and a special e-commerce site. 3. Demand and supply matching. 3.1. Reasons to sell products and services on the moon even though we can't go to the moon. There are two main types of demand and supply for ASTRAX Lunar City. The first is the one in which if there is already a product or service, there is already a demand for it, and if we can match it, we can sell it right now. Or, even if there are no products or services right now, it can be done if we decide to create them right now. For example, if people want lunar accessories, pictures, t-shirts, and other lunar-related goods, we can make them right away. Even if they are not members of the ASTRAX Lunar City, there are companies that already sell them and customers who want to buy them. Even if there are no such products yet, they can be sold if they are made by gathering customers first. This could be a system like crowdfunding or a made-to-order production system. As long as the design is on the moon, there will be no technical problems. The second is the supply and demand of things that we can only use if we go to the moon, or that we want to use when we go to the moon. For example, we have not yet developed a beer that people can drink while looking at Earth when they go to the moon. This is because there is no such demand. Even if there were, it would be impossible to prove that the beer server would function properly in a 1/6 gravity environment, and even if it were proven using parabolic flight, it would not sell because it would not be possible to go to the moon. However, that is not the case. There are people on Earth who want to enjoy the same beer they can drink on the moon. We can sell it even if we haven't finished a new creation of it yet. For example, consider the Virgin Galactic spacecraft development. In 2005, Virgin Galactic had just invested in the prototype Spaceship One developed by Scaled Composites, and Spaceship Two was still a shadow of its former self. However, there were people who wanted to travel to space, a need. And even though there was no spacecraft yet, they started selling space travel, and despite the high price of $200,000, they received applications from all over the world. After that, the prototype was developed, and while conducting test flights, the number of applicants for space travel gradually increased, and as of 2021, about 600 people have paid the full amount and are waiting for their turn. There are more than 100,000 people waiting, including those who have only made reservations. This is a good example of how a market can be created and a product sold even though the aircraft is not yet complete and commercial operations have not yet started. The same thing is happening with ASTRAX Lunar City, where we can match supply and demand even if we can't go to the moon yet. In a way, this could be called ultra-long-range crowdfunding. The same concept applies to the moonland sold by Lunar Embassy. Constantly growing the supply and demand at the same time is necessary to make it happen in the end. 3.2. Matching supply and demand through ASTRAX Lunar City Citizens Meeting. ASTRAX has held 18 citizen meetings for the members of ASTRAX Lunar City so far. Before the spread of the COVID-19, the meetings were held in actual conference rooms, but they are now being held online. This is an opportunity for members of the business community and the residence club to meet and talk in person, and to find out what products and services are in demand and in supply. Of course, both are based on the premise of, when we go to the moon, so the actual need for these services will be far in the future. This gives an opportunity for the people who own the land on the moon to already be able to imagine the future in their consciousness, so they can work together to build for that time when it comes. If it is something that can be made and used on Earth, then it can be bought and sold immediately. 3.3. Matching supply and demand through Clubhouse. ASTRAX Lunar City has a program called the ASTRAX Lunar City Channel, which is ran by the two co-mayors using Clubhouse. It is broadcasted regularly every Tuesday and Thursday, and by the end of August 2021, it had been broadcasted over 60 times. On this channel, members of ASTRAX Lunar City and other people gather casually to discuss supply and demand related to the moon. Because it is not as formal as a citizens' meeting, people can think and share new ideas freely and openly, making it a useful place to create new supply and demand. 3.4. Global market and lunar market. When the time comes for people to stay on the moon, it will be too late to start creating the products and services that will be needed on the moon for only that instance. Of course, people may think, if I make it now, it won't sell because I can't go to the moon. But that is not so. What we make now for our life on the moon can be sold in the market on Earth. The only way to control the lunar market better than anyone else is to realize it. It is easy to predict that there will be a lot of products and services related to the moon once the moon trips start. Starting to create those products and services now and developing the technology will be the key to being able to capture the market at that time. Even if nothing has been created yet, just by thinking and using their brain and finding friends, it will be easier to move quickly when the time comes. The members of ASTRAX Lunar City started such preparation in 2007, so we can say that we are already well prepared. We have the business network, technology and equipment needed for business development, the market demand, mechanisms to connect supply and demand, and we have the platforms to use them. It is faster and easier for those who to use them in the future. We have already started preparing and working in anticipation of when that time will come. 3.5. Matching supply and demand through EC sites. ASTRAX Lunar City has built a dedicated e-commerce site to match supply and demand. The site is lined with products and services related to the moon, and people who need products and services related to the moon can search among them. The number of products and services is still small, but we are planning to add thousands or tens of thousands of products and services to create a situation where people can find all the products and services related to and used on the moon. It's like creating the moon version of Amazon. 3.6. Matching supply and demand with a dedicated app. ASTRAX has also developed a dedicated application. Originally, the application was exclusively for ASTRAX Lunar City members, but now its scope has been expanded and it is evolving into a platform for all ASTRAX space products and space services. 3.7. Importance of technology validation and market demonstration. ASTRAX Lunar City already has about 350 business members. There are two communities, the business community and the residence club. From these communities, various new lunar-related products and services are about to be born. We're also preparing a simulated long-term stay facility at ASTRAX Lunar City. As we mentioned, ASTRAX Lunar City has a management team to run the city, a mayor, and citizen meetings. We also have a clubhouse for broadcasting. We are now working on creating a market and a platform for matching supply and demand. In addition, we are also building apps and mapping tools. A lot of these activities are already going on the ground without taking it to the moon just yet. Educational courses, events, hands-on tours, writing and presenting international articles, participating in the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. If we have a lot of people who are already familiar with what we are doing, we will be able to quickly provide the products and services that the lunar explorers and their people need, as well as the mechanisms to provide them and to live with them when the time comes. For this reason, it will be important to see how much demonstration testing and market validation we can do on Earth. At ASTRAX, we have already accumulated a lot of experiences and achievements since 2007. It is not enough to develop hardware and infrastructure, but unless we can develop a need and a market for it, the lunar exploration will not be successful. To prevent this from happening, we will continue to verify and demonstrate the possibility of exploring the moon by ordinary people. 3.8. Spin-off markets. A common practice in space development is the development of spin-off products and services on the ground that were created for space development. A simple example is Velcro. The same can be said for lunar exploration. In other words, there are many possibilities that the various products, services, technologies, and systems created for the lunar city can be applied to enrich our lives on Earth. 3.9. How to pay for matching supply and demand. On Earth, when supply and demand are matched, a transaction takes place, and payment is made in the form of money. But can the same be said for the moon? At ASTRAX, we believe that the economic system on Earth cannot be directly applied to space when we think about the extraterrestrial economic sphere, such as the lunar economic sphere, the space economic sphere, or the solar system economic sphere. For example, we believe that the currency for trading on the moon should not be the legal tender of some country on Earth, but a special currency, or an alternative, for the moon. The same thing will eventually be needed in the spacecraft and on Mars. We think we will need at least a space currency, or value standard, that can be used throughout the solar system. 3.10. The ultimate lunar economic system through recycling and sharing. Exploring the moon and creating a living space, it is like creating another Earth. In such a case, instead of starting from the primitive age, the current level of technology on Earth would be the initial starting point, from which towns and countries would be built as they evolve. However, each country on Earth should not be competing for space, and each country should not be competing for resources. We need to create a system that is fair to the people of Earth, so that the evolution of human technology and services can proceed smoothly and without delay. At ASTRAX, we believe that life on the moon will allow us to create the ultimate recycling, sharing, and bartering world.